There's a specific kind of person who can explain in precise psychological detail why they're not moving forward. They know their attachment style. They've traced their self-sabotage back to childhood. They can articulate their fear of failure in terms Brené Brown would be proud of. They've journaled about it. They've spoken to 3 friends and a therapist about it. They understand it. And they're still not doing anything about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Navya. I'm a psychology student at university, and in this video I'm going to talk about why the most self-aware people are the most stuck. I used to think self-awareness was the answer to almost everything. If you could just see yourself clearly, really see yourself, the rest would follow. The problem would dissolve once it was named. I've watched enough people, including myself, get extremely fluent in their dysfunction and not change a single thing about it. And I've had to reckon with something uncomfortable. Insight and action are not the same thing. In fact, they can work against each other. Here's what actually happens. There's a psychological phenomenon called the Introspection Illusion. The idea is that when we look inward to explain our behavior, we're often not accessing the real cause. We're constructing a theory, a plausible narrative, something that feels true because we built it, not because it is true. And the smarter you are, the better the stories get. The more sophisticated the framework, the more convincing the explanation, easier it becomes to confuse understanding the problem with actually solving it. This is where self-awareness starts to curdle. When introspection becomes a habit rather than a tool, it stops being about growth and starts being about management. You're not trying to change, you're trying to make sense of yourself so the discomfort has somewhere to go. The thinking becomes the output. You spend so long diagnosing that you never get to the prescription. Rumination is the extreme version of this. Research consistently shows that rumination, which is repetitive, self-focused thought, doesn't help people process difficult emotions. It extends them. It keeps the wound open while giving you the sensation of doing something about it. Because you are doing something, you're thinking, you're reflecting, you're working on yourself, except you're not. You're orbiting the same point at increasing depth. And at a certain depth, you stop looking for solutions entirely. You're just cataloging. The exit from that loop is almost never another insight. It's almost always an action small enough to be undeniable. Something you can do before the thinking starts again. I think there's also something more uncomfortable going on, which is that self-awareness can function as a way of not being accountable. Now, if I understand why I procrastinate, the perfectionism, the fear, the way I learned to associate performance with worth, then I've explained it. And explained things feel like handled things. The insight gives me permission to stay where I am, because at least I'm not oblivious, at least I'm trying. The self-awareness becomes the work. But this is a kind of soft self-deception. Knowing why you do something changes nothing about whether or not you do it. You can have a perfect psychological autopsy of your avoidance and still avoid. You can understand your fear of rejection down to the neural level and still not send the email, start the project, or say that thing. The map doesn't move your feet. And I think this is particularly dangerous for people who are naturally introspective, who find thinking easier than doing, who process externally, who feel more comfortable in their heads than in the world. Because the thinking feels like progress. It has the texture of work. It satisfies something, which is exactly why it can keep you still for years. Now, none of this means self-awareness is overrated. Understanding yourself matters, because without it, you're just reacting to things you can't see. But there's a version of it that's actually backwards, where the insight is supposed to precede the action, where you're waiting to understand yourself completely before you move. As if there's some level of threshold of self-awareness where everything becomes clear and the doing becomes easy. Spoiler alert, there isn't. The threshold doesn't exist, and waiting for it is just avoidance with better vocabulary. The way self-awareness actually works is not that you understand yourself and then act upon it. It's that you act, and in the friction of actually doing something, you understand yourself more accurately. The real data comes from behavior, not contemplation. You don't find out what you're afraid of by thinking about your fear. You find out by doing the thing and then seeing what happens. The insight comes after the exposure, not before. This is why people who act impulsively often understand themselves better than people who reflect constantly, because they're collecting real information. The reflection that follows action is useful. Reflection that replaces it isn't. Which means at some point the introspection has to stop. Not forever, not as a principle, but for now, today, about the specific thing you've been circling for 6 months or 2 years or however long. At some point, the question isn't why am I like this? It's what am I going to do about it? And those are completely different questions. One keeps you in your head, the other puts you in the world. So here's what I want to ask you. What do you understand about yourself perfectly? And what has that understanding cost you? Because there's a difference between insight that changes you and insight that explains you. One moves you, but the other just makes stillness more comfortable. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Navya, and if this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing because it would help me out so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!